We're joined by our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And Secretary Pompeo, a lot I want to talk to you about. First off, this really heartbreaking testimony from just a great American, Lieutenant Sergeant, Marine Sergeant Tyler Vargas-Andrews, who testified yesterday on Capitol Hill about the Afghan withdrawal, and specific in the situation. When he testified, he told lawmakers that his sniper team had detailed information about the bomber who killed 13 of our military and could have taken out the terrorists, but were told to stand down by a commander in charge. And yet, Joe Biden calls this an extraordinary success. Not only do we have these 13 Americans who were killed, and then those who were seriously injured, like Sergeant Vargas, but also these opportunities that were obviously missed.
Jordan, Sergeant Vargas' story is heartbreaking. He is an American hero. As were all the men and women who served in Afghanistan, in our intelligence agencies and in the military for 2 decades. To watch what happened there, and we've talked about this a bit before, to watch what happened there is not only heartbreaking in the personal level, to see what actually happened to our guys on the ground where we lost 13 Americans, but all the Americans that we left behind, all our allies who'd fought alongside of us who we left behind. And when President Biden says this was successful, or when he said, "Boy, I'll withdraw responsibly," we know that's just gaslighting the American people. We neither left responsibly, nor did we do so in a way that was decent. And the ramifications are deep and lasting. The whole world saw that debacle, and America's place in the world was diminished, in addition to the terrible tragedies that happened on the ground that day that Sergeant Vargas so heartbreakingly testified about yesterday.
Yeah, let me just play it for people. This is about 50 seconds. This is Sergeant Vargas-Andrews testifying about this opportunity to kill the suicide bomber, and how he did not get the authority to do so and tried to go up the chain of command. I mean, he's brave to testify. He was brave in this situation, would even bypass his commander, saying, I'm not sure why we're being told to stand down. Take a listen, bite 3.
Over the communication network, we passed that there was a potential threat and an IED attack imminent. This was as serious as it could get. I requested engagement authority while my team leader was ready on the M110 semi-automatic sniper system. The response: leadership did not have the engagement authority for us. Do not engage. I requested for the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Brad Whited, to come to the tower to see what we did. While we waited for him, psychological operations individuals came to our tower immediately and confirmed the suspect met the suicide bomber description. He eventually arrived and we showed him our evidence, the photos we had of the 2 men. We reassured him of the ease of fire on the suicide bomber. Pointedly, we asked him for engagement authority and permission. We asked him if we could shoot. Our battalion commander said, and I quote, "I don't know," end quote. Myself and my team leader asked very harshly, "Well, who does? Because this is your responsibility, sir."
It's just very, very powerful. And Secretary Pompeo, you have military background, CIA background. The courage for him to get up there and testify this way. I mean, he lost 2 limbs, organs, was injured as well, to testify this way. It is fairly remarkable. But I always want to be a reminder to people that when we have those situations like the withdrawal in Afghanistan and how botched it was, and the outrage that was built really across all American people, it was not a partisan moment at all. But then we tend to kind of move on, and then you get a reminder that there's a lot of folks we're never going to be able to totally be able to move on, and in their mind think they could have done something more, and they just didn't get the authority to do so.
No, Jordan, you have it exactly right. We can never forget these things. Sometimes we raise them up to a level that's abstract, but the human reality, as I was a young lieutenant a long time ago now, but the human reality of what he experienced that day that he so unbelievably bravely testified about yesterday always reminds us that when we talk about the military becoming woke, or we talk about rules of engagement that don't let our soldiers protect themselves, these aren't abstract ideas. These aren't policies. They aren't principles. They impact families and Americans and our security. We got to get them right. And that was a heartbreaking reminder of when there's confusion and failed leadership at the top, what that means for those folks who are actually on the ground tasked with executing the mission in the way that Sergeant Vargas was that day.
Continuing on Afghanistan, because we've heard more testimony as well, and that we've seen this latest report from the Special Inspector General for the Afghan Reconstruction. And this report just came out late last month as people are going through it. And now, as people are combing through that report, Secretary Pompeo, we now know that the Special Inspector General believes that the Taliban is in possession of nearly $7.2 billion worth of U.S. taxpayer-funded weapons, ammunition, and aircraft, including 78 aircraft worth nearly $1 billion. 9,500 air-to-ground munitions valued at $6.5 million, over 40,000 vehicles, 300,000 weapons. Basically, all of the surveillance and communications and biometric equipment that we provided to the Afghan defense forces that were left behind. This goes to that entire theory. If you're going to withdraw and you've got this kind of equipment on the ground, do something about that, whether it's secured, whether it's destroyed, before you leave it to the Taliban.
Jordan, I lived this for 4 years. We were working our tails off to get out of there as quickly as we could. President Trump had made a campaign promise we were going to get our young men and women back, and we did. We brought a lot of equipment back. We went from 15,000 uniformed folks on the ground to just over 2,500. But we were determined not just to get out, right? That's the easy part in some ways. We were determined to keep Americans safe, to keep relative stability, and to get all of our stuff out of the hands of the Taliban before we departed, at least all the complex stuff. Look, some of this equipment will end up being broken. They won't be able to maintain it, but something bad could easily happen. And they could certainly sell it to others as well, even if the Taliban can't use it. But they'll sell it to others who can. This is a real risk. And the mistake of picking a political date and saying we're going to be out on this date is a direct cause of what you're seeing today. And the Inspector General's report is a symptom of that terrible leadership decision President Biden made.
When we look at that, and then we go to the new D&I report. There's a new 2023 report, the threat assessment they have to do. And the new D&I report, it says that when it comes to al-Qaeda, the intelligence community has assessed that the threat to the terrorist organization, that whatever it poses, will depend on the Taliban itself. And they're kind of like, are we asserting any kind of pressure on the Taliban? I mean, just to say, well, it'll be up to the Taliban whether or not al-Qaeda continues on or is able to rebuild.
Jordan, the al-Qaeda problem is not just an Afghanistan problem. We should absolutely be applying pressure to the Taliban. We knew how to do it. We did it for 4 years. I mean, this is not theoretical. We know how to do that. But this al-Qaeda problem is bigger than that. I didn't see that particular piece of the report, but make no mistake about it, al-Qaeda, while diminished in Afghanistan, is still very capable in Africa. It's still very capable in other parts of the world. It's being run, incidentally, we forget about this. The headquarters for al-Qaeda's operations today are in Iran, in Tehran, Iran, not in Afghanistan, not in the Flat Top, but in Iran. And this administration is playing footsie with the Iranian regime still, while they are hosting and harboring terrorists, the operational leaders of al-Qaeda. This is all deeply connected, Jordan. We have to continue to put pressure. This counterterror campaign has to be maintained for American security and to honor the service of so many who fought and lost their lives in the counterterrorism campaign over the last 2 decades.
Secretary Pompeo, as always, I appreciate all of your insight.